Hello students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? If you are able to hear my voice clearly, students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if my voice is audible from your end? Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So students, the first thing what we have to do is in the today's class, I'm effectively focusing on how to improve your writing skills, because writing skills matters at the end of the day. And if you observe in the strategic case study, the way you write is not the same like MCS. It's a little bit more towards the stakeholders, the environment, the places we are operating, and the longer term view. You need to always see the bigger picture, which is very, very important in order to do very well with the examination. Now, students, if I'm not mistaken, we can start with the question because we have done the analysis very, very well. Now, if you see in this case, I have developed a small question. So we can do this question today. And while doing the question, we can get the understanding of some technical analysis that is needed to pass this examination. Now, students, mock number 1, if you see Daistruk, that is our organization. Now, Max Foster. Now, students, Max Foster is our HR, okay, has sent the following mail. There are some research reports. Now, students, first thing is examination technique. Now, what is the examination technique is when you are doing a question, you generally start reading from the top. That needs to be prevented in the examination because students, in most of the cases, not all, in most of the cases, there are chances that the question may have irrelevant information that makes the students to think beyond what is required. So always when you go to the examination, you have to start going through the requirement as well. Now evaluate the argument on ethical responsibility of providing insurance to the drivers. So students coming into the mock answers, if I'm not mistaken, I can just write down something called answer plan. This is allowed in the examination before you start the answer, but you have to have a heading properly. So in the answer plan, students, I am going to have 2 elements. 2 elements is this you have to follow when I give you the book. Now, students, if you observe the purple color, I believe you can see something in purple color inverted commas. Now, the purple color inverted commas, what effectively does make sense is I'm going to write down what did I understand? What did I understand? Now, students, if you observe in the CIMA strategic case study examination, it's not about the knowledge that will make you pass. It's always the understanding of the question that make you pass. If your understanding of the question is very good, then you can easily pass this examination. So what did I understand? Once again, I'm repeating here, students. What did I understand? Now, what did I understand? You have to make sure the summary. Because certain students, the biggest reason why they don't get a good results is they don't understand the question and they write down theory, whatever they know. In that case, examiner will not give you marks in order to pass the examination. Now, students, coming back to the next one. Now, the question task. Now, I already know these things are fine. So, the question task. Evaluate the arguments on ethical responsibility of providing insurance to drivers. I'll write down here ethical responsibility. Ethical responsibility of providing insurance to drivers. That is one point of view. Whether we need to give insurance to drivers or not. That is one factor. And then students, if I'm not mistaken, the second one is identify the challenges. Again, observe it very clearly, students. Identify the challenges associated with conducting an analysis of insurance policy on political, legal, and social factors. So I'll write down here challenges on political, legal, and social factors of providing an insurance. Now, students, get it down very clearly, students. Now, if you observe in this case, it is effectively 50%. And in this case also, it is effectively how many percent? 50-50%, if I'm not mistaken. Now, students, you have to come to a very big understanding. Now, if you see in this case, the 90% of the crowd will write pestle analysis. That is wrong. This is not a pestle analysis, but the students who just come from the managerial level or from the operational level or from a degree route, when they see political, legal, and the social factors, they start writing down the pestle analysis where they don't get any marks. So please remember that is a very, very important application that you have to keep in mind in order to score well in the examination. Now, students, if you observe this, let's go through this. Now, I said there is a statement called, what did I understand? Now, before moving into that, let's go here. There are some research reports circulating in the online platform relating to the work policy in the supply chain industry, specifically in the area of insurance for truck drivers and the terminal workers in Roundland. So I read the first paragraph. Now, in this statement, I have to write it down. What did I understand? The reason is, students, I'll just write down here, online circulation of research report regarding the insurance policy, regarding the insurance policy for the drivers, insurance policy for the drivers. Now, that is the first sentence. So the first sentence is a very critical overview. And the overview is effectively explaining about the insurance policy for the drivers. Once again, I'm repeating, students, the first paragraph is explaining the insurance policies for the drivers and online circulation. So there is an online circulation in the market also. Now moving to the next sentence. Generally, as you are aware, in Roundland, that is our country, there is a minimum wage policy for the truck drivers. They have a minimum wage policy. Since it is the only rule prevailing in the market, that means, students, only you have to pay minimum wage, and that's enough. Therefore, majority of the logistic firms or the service providers only follow the compliance standards that are legal. So the organizations, Daistruk, or if you see Carry, all these companies are effectively doing whatever the legal obligations. They have accepted it. We will definitely pay them the salary, whatever that is requested by the government and what is already legal to be paid. And the insurance factor is generally ignored, as most of the truck drivers are generally migrant workers from Asia. Now, students, this is true. If you have gone to the Western countries, you will see the truck drivers, them are from India, all these Asian countries, Bangladesh, these places only, students. And even if you see Africa, there will be some people from Africa also. These are heavy duty workers. So just understand it very clearly, students. They are migrant workers from Asia. Therefore, the legal obligations are less, since they have accepted the job knowing all the challenges they may face well in advance. Now, this paragraph is a very good paragraph, because this paragraph, as per my reading, it may be different for you, but as per my reading, I'm able to see three things: minimum wage policy, following of that, and the second one is insurance is ignored, and the third one is the laborers are migrant workers from Asia. So these are the three things that I have noted. So I'll just write down the paragraph number 2. Minimum wage policy is satisfied. Minimum wage policy is what, students? Satisfied. Minimum wage policy is what, students? Satisfied. And also, there are chances of not paying insurance. And that is true. It's not chances not paying insurance, since It is not a legal requirement. It is not a what students legal requirement. It is not a legal requirement. And most of the staffs are Asian migrants. Understand it very clearly, students. Asian migrants. This is practical. This is not lies. This is practical. Students, now I am going to the next one. But in the research report, the understanding is very clear that on the base of human respect and ethical value, there is no much priority given. Although these tasks are generally tough and hard to operate, and there are chances of injury taking place. So I'll just write down the next one. What did I understand? High risk job, some courtesy on human values needs to be applied, but ignored. Now, students, these are very, very hard jobs actually, but it is purely ignored. And the next one. I need to discuss the above issues to the board of directors since we are planning to include this understanding on the social reporting section in the financial statements. Therefore, please, can you respond on the following? So I'm just going to write down here the audience. Social reporting section. So you have to understand it's not for all. Social reporting sections. And before the AGM, the agency is also high. The urgency is very, very high. Students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are clear with this point of view, students? Can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? What did I understand? When you go to the examination, don't ever miss this. What did I understand? If you miss this sentence, students, you will give auto suggestions. Auto suggestion means you will write an answer that is coming to your mind without thinking. You will write an answer without thinking. That is the dangerous point in the SCS exam. If you observe, majority of the students fail the examination, they write the answer without thinking. Once again, I'm repeating, students, they write the answer without thinking because that is extremely important. Now, students, coming to the next one, the reference material. Let's focus on this. Logistic industry faces criticism over insurance policy. That is the heading. The research report published by Roadland Trade Activist Union, which is a non-profit organization, has revealed that logistic industry in Roundland is not providing any insurance policy for workers, although they take high risk to work in tough climates and also sometimes face injury. So I'll write down here, Roundland. I mention here, students, Roundland Trade Union Activist. And students, it's a NFP, not-for-profit organization. Research finding. Same thing only, students, they have mentioned. They are working hard, but the research findings are saying this. Now, students, coming to the next one. The research explains that one reason for this may be workers are migrant from Africa, Asia, and Africa. Therefore, they're not having sufficient insurance policy since they have been already clearly communicated as well. The research concludes that this is a serious exploitation issue that is taking place in the industry. Again, understand it very well. This is an issue taking place in our company or industry. It is taking place in where, students? Industry. So I'll write down here, serious issue in the industry. Now, majority of the students need to understand, you have to be very clear, serious issues on the industry. Now, students, now 90% of the students will ignore industry and they will effectively write it specifically for Daistruk. Now, this is an industry issue and 90% of the students who go to the examination without planning will go and write it for Daistruk. So students, can I underline the term industry? Because it is very, very, very important. Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, students, if that industry term is very clear for you? It's an issue under the industry. It's not an issue on our company, overall issue on the industry. And then there needs to be proper understanding and application as well to have some better policies. So that is also done. Now, students coming now, I think what did I understand is very critical. Now, students, if you speak to anyone who pass SCS examination, the only reason they are passing, they are saying they have effectively done a very stable application, a very stable analysis. So that is the only reason they have passed this examination. So students, can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are okay with the initial reading? Because only initial reading is not enough. You need to have a secondary reading as well, like a proof reading. The first reading is data recovery. Take out the data. What did I understand? Secondly, you reconfirm what you understood is correct or not correct. So I'm going to do the reconfirmation now. Now, what did I understand? Online circulation of a report, a research report. Now I know who wrote it. Roland Trade Union activist. Insurance policy for the drivers, minimum wage policies are satisfied. We are paying them very, very well. That is done. But also there are chances of not paying insurance since it's not a legal requirement. And most staffs are Asian migrants. High-risk jobs and some courtesy and human values needs to be applied, but ignored social reporting section. So the social reporting section before the AGM. So students, if you observe, these are the basic understanding of this question. So ethical responsibility of providing insurance to the driver. Now, in this case, this is a very, very different question, students, very different question. Now, in this case, you cannot write an answer like you wrote in management case. In management case study, you don't have anything to think dimensionally. You study whatever the teacher says, you pass. But here you have to improve your thinking pattern. Again, I'm repeating, students, here you have to improve your thinking pattern in order to pass and score very well in the examination. So students, ethical responsibility of providing insurance to the driver. Now, what do you think, students? Do we need to provide insurance to the drivers or no need to provide insurance to the drivers? I can speak to students, Priscilla, if you are online and if it is possible to speak, what do you think, Priscilla?
From a point of view of a business, it's going to be costly. So it's ethical if we do pay them, but business-wise, I think it would affect us a little bit. But then it's an argument that we will probably have to make.
Thank you. And Priscilla, just want to ask you one question. Just considering the West, how about the treatment for migrant workers, not PR, not permanent resident workers? I'm telling the workers who are migrant skilled workers. Do they give much priority or little less compared to the citizens and the PR holders?
Little less.
Little less, right?
Yes,
so that is also one factor to be considered, students. So understand that very, very well. So that's a good point. So students, if you observe, in this case, it's very different. So any other people can tell their point of view. Mr. Keetiswaran, what do you think, Mr. Keetiswaran? Do we need to give any insurance for these truck drivers working as a migrant or no need to give, Mr. Keetiswaran? Salary is paid.
But what I would say is, since it's the industry norm, if we are considering it, I would say there should be like 50-50 partnership, like something where they also contribute, we also contribute. That would be a better way of doing the thing. And ethically, in these, are we giving policies for the old country people or that I missed?
No. Overall, no insurance. Overall, no insurance policy.
If overall that is the industry norm, of course, then I think that is not ethically wrong.
Correct, no, Mr. Girisar, not ethically wrong, right, Mr. Girisar?
Yeah.
So students understand it differently because what they are saying is little different from the MCS. In the MCS, you would have told that you need to give this insurance policies for the drivers. But in this case, you have to consider the business norms. So students, before we move forward into a detailed revision, I want to give you a small note, because if you see in your examination, in the first question itself, I'm saying ethics is a compulsory section in your examination, because you are in the top management and your point of view should always reflect some ethical values as well. So I'm going to write down here ethics in exam. So this is one thing you have to be concerned with. So I'm going to write down ethics in exams. And students, if you do not mind, I'm going to segregate this into 3 sections. Ethics in exam. I'm going to segregate this into 3 sections. Now, these 3 are coming in the examinations, but a student needs to differentiate it. One is known as personal ethics. One is known as, if I'm not mistaken, professional ethics, and the other one is known as business ethics. So these are the 3 classification of ethics. Now, students, personal ethics, an example I can generally give you is vegetarian versus non-vegetarian, because a person who is a vegetarian versus the non-vegetarian, actually no one can't blame anyone, because if he's a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian, it's a personal choice. It is what, students? Personal choice. Now, example, students, family matters. Sometimes that can come in the examination. Family matters of a director. That is a personal ethics. Okay. And then, students, if I'm not mistaken, habits of a person. Like smoker, a person is a smoker. Let's assume like that. Personal ethics. Now, example, he is smoking. Personal ethics. So, students, are you clear with what is personal ethics? Personal ethics means in the examination, they may specifically mention a director. So that is only known as personal ethics. I believe that is very clear for the students at the moment. Can I quickly get a confirmation from you all if you are fine with the personal ethics tested in the examination? You have to be very different when you're writing the answers. So this is personal ethics. Then the second one, professional ethics. Now, if you see code of ethics, that is, if you see, we have the code of ethics. One is known as integrity. Then we have something called what, students? Objectivity. Then we have something called what, students? Confidentiality. Then we have what, students, if I'm not mistaken, professional competence and what, students? Due care. Professional competence and due care. Competence and due care. And then we have something called professional behavior. So students understand it very, very well. So if you see the code of ethics, these are the 5 principles, And then students, if you see business ethics, it depends on industry practices. Now, students, if I ask anyone, what is cigarette? Cigarettes are ethical or unethical? 100% will say cigarette is unethical. But actually, students, cigarettes in the CIMA point of view is an ethical business. Why? In cigarettes, they always mention what, students? Smoking causes cancer. So if you see, when they effectively say smoking causes cancer, and if they are selling their product, that product has some business values because they have already made the awareness to the customer. But if you observe McDonald's, if you generally ask from 100% of the people, they will always say, of course, McDonald's is an ethical business. But in the CIMA terms, it is not ethical because they are providing junk foods without awareness. Correct, no, students? Yes or no? Because if you see, when you go to McDonald's, they will never create an awareness stating that McDonald's foods are injurious to your health. They will never say. So that is the business point of view. So students, are you clear with these 3 types of ethics, students? That is the personal ethics, professional ethics, and the business ethics. Can I get a confirmation from you all? Because in the examination, the student needs to differentiate the 3 types of ethics in order to score the proper marks in the examination. For personal ethics, is they are right or wrong? If something their choice. As I told you, it's a personal thing. So you can't interfere in their personal matters. So in business, it's a UK business. So you can't go. Now in India, if a celebrity gets a child also, they will put it in headlines. This child has got like that. That is wrong in the UK context. Because if you see, those are their personal matters where you cannot get involved. I believe that explanation was clear because many students, specifically from India, get confused with personal ethics. Because students in India, there is nothing called privacy. Whatever you see, everyone is coming in the headlines also. So just remember, students, in the UK or the developed world, personal ethics can come into a situation, but as a person on a decision-making role, you need to make sure that personal ethics have to have a boundary in coming to the business decision. So students, now one more thing. These the 5 factors, if I'm not mistaken, which I'm highlighting here, is generally having some of a relationship with business ethics also. Because students, if you observe a business, should have a little bit of integrity, objectivity also. And also in personal ethics as well, there needs to be some connect. That doesn't mean you have to mug up the answer and write it down, but there needs to be some connection. So students, can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are fine with this personal ethics, professional ethics, and the business ethics, students? Because these are the fundamental point of view that you have to remember when you're going to the examination. You need to differentiate it while reading the case study. Now, students, in this case, you are very clear, we are having a business ethical issue. The main reason is serious issue on the industry. Again, understand it very, very well. They have specifically mentioned it is a serious issue on the industry. Once again, I'm repeating here, students, serious issue on the industry. So I believe everything is fine for you all. Now, students, coming to the ethical responsibility of providing insurance to the driver. Now, whenever you are answering a question, students, just make sure that you have a proper introduction. Introduction means not writing down the question, not writing down the pre-scene, but giving you an overview of what is happening and what is the issue that we are facing. So students, if you see, one thing I have to give you in the answer plan section, if I'm not mistaken. Now, students, before we go to the bigger answer in simple, so currently in the bigger point of view, so just a point of view here, students. Now you see your examination. Let's assume your examination, 33 marks per question. How many marks per question? 33 marks per question. That is very clear now, students. Now, if they say 50%, directly 33, 50%, half of that in simple language will be somewhere around 16 marks. And if you see 50% again in simple language, 33, if I'm not mistaken, other part will be like 17 marks. This is how they break it down. They're not giving in decimal points. It's not 16.5, 16.5. They are just giving like this. Now, as a student in CIMA, you have to be very careful when you're writing the answer. The answer needs to be detailedly explained. So I'm going to write down here how to explain the answer. You need to have a technical reference. Technical reference. Technical reference can be your own words, can be your own words as well. Technical reference can be your own words as well. And then students, you have to connect it to the business, which is very, very important. And then you have to explain the impact also. So technical reference in simple language is what? And business reference is why is that affecting this business? And the impact is how. How can there be impacts to the business? What, why, and how? So if you are going to write down a paragraph in a very simple manner, please don't forget the technical reference. And students, only remember, just only of these will not give you a marks. It should be a combination of all three. So technical reference, business reference, and the impact as well. Now, one more thing I have to tell you. Now, students, if you observe, now 16 marks, if they are saying, now there are two methods or two schools of thought. The first school of thought is you divide it by 2. That means you have to have 8 paragraph explained. In here also, it should be divided by 2, 8 paragraph, detailed paragraphs you have to explain. That means you have to have 8 different points in order to write the answer. Now, students, in that case, can I get a confirmation from you? This is one school of thought. Example, in the management case study, you followed like this. You would have write around 5 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs or 4 paragraphs by dividing it by half. Now, in the strategic case study, it's little tough. 8 paragraphs for one answer. Not easy. I believe everyone has got that point of view. You will get a confusion in the examination and you will effectively struggle in the examination as well. So students, can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are clear with the first school of thought? That is, you can write 8 paragraphs. That is one factor. But students, it's very hard. I am coming to the second school of thought, which is followed by the majority of the students in the market. So I'm going to write down here second school of thought, second school of thought, second school of thought. Now, in the second school of thought, it is very, very simple. 10% means one paragraph. Understand it very well. 10% means one paragraph. So 50% means how many paragraphs? It should be 5 paragraphs. 50% should be how many paragraphs? 5 paragraphs. So students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are able to understand this properly? Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are able to understand this structuring properly? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And once again, students, in the examination, your duration for one question is 60 minutes. 60 minutes means 1 hour. You have ample amount of time. So you have to make sure you design your answer properly and ensure that you pass the examination very, very well. So students, if I'm not mistaken, I will going to finish the ethical issue first. Generally, in the corporate sector, every business needs to follow the legal compliances. Since it is mandatory and there are chances for fines being imposed, in case if the compliances are not followed. Compliances are not followed. Understand it clearly. Therefore, in the business cases, the companies needs to follow the legal guidance for going concern. Example, ISO standards are followed by many manufacturers to ensure the compliance requirement is adopted. Full stop. Similarly, factors which are not in the legal compliances can be considered as ethical policies which are generally considered. Example, providing free accommodations to the staffs and also good places to work. This can be a CSR policy as well. Example, in India, Tata Group generally volunteers to support the community, although there is no legal responsibility. Which may effectively add value to the business, brand, and also the reputation. Stop. Students, now what I have written here is a technical reference. Now in the technical reference, students, you can write practical examples because you have not yet connected to our company, which is Daistruk. Now example, students, if you observe in this case, I have mentioned Tata Group. Because in this case, I have written ISO standards. Now, in your examinations, whenever you are writing technical knowledge, you can connect it. Because technical knowledge, I said it can be written it in your own words. Once again, I'm repeating, students, technical language can be written in your own words. So students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are clear with this basic technical references that has been mentioned? Because this is one easy way that you can score some marks in the examination by connecting with this practical point of view. Thank you very much, students. Now, students, coming to the next explanation so that it will be very, very easier for you all to understand and apply. So I'm going forward. So I'm going to connect it with a different color pen that is going to be a red color pen for our business application. At present, in the logistic industry, at Brownland, the major business operators are providing the legal wages to the staffs, and all the legal factors has been conducted by the firm. Therefore, there is no legal obligation. There is no legal obligation at the moment for any players in the market. Considering the ethical factors, the following needs to be considered on relation with the insurance to the truck drivers. Example, the truck drivers may not have insurance, and the industry is not adopting this policy. That is also one more factor. Therefore, since there is no need there are no compulsions. There are no what students? Compulsions as well. So students, can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you got that point of view? There are not no compulsions, students. Now, legal things are compulsory, but ethical things are not compulsory at the moment. Are you clear with that point of view? Because I was arguing that. Now, students, here, when I'm doing the explanation in the class, it's very easy because I am thinking. Now, when you are thinking, then only the application works out. So, students, I'm going to connect this more in detail so that you will get the understanding very, very well and very critically as well. So, the next one is, in case if there is an insurance, will that have any changes? That is a good question. In case if there is an insurance, will that have any changes? Yes, it depends on the level of injury taking place. Example, if the level is high and if there are insurance policies, the recovery rate can be higher. The recovery rate can be high. And increase the productivity as well. Also, there are chances where the cost for the companies may to increase as well. Also, there are some downsides. Example, in case if there is an insurance, the truck drivers may be careless. Students, can that also happen, students? The truck drivers can be careless as well because they know now we have insurance. So anyway, something wrong happens, we can get the claim. So can this become a backfiring point, students? Yes or no? Can I get a confirmation, students, if you got that application, students? Because they will also think, anyway, I have insurance, so I can do whatever I want. That can end up in a carelessness as well. Get that point very clearly. Therefore, the insurance policy can be a general factor to be considered by the industry. A general factor to be considered by the industry. There can be positives as well in the point of sustaining human capital. Sustaining human capital as well. But there are chances of having high cost as well, which may affect the shareholders. Full stop. So students, in this ethical argument, it's very gray area, students, very, very gray area. And you see, students, I'm saying something good, something bad also. But the ethical responsibility is a gray area as well. I didn't write anything related to the migrant workers. The main reason is, students, it will coming in our next area. Social factors, can you remember, students? Political, legal, and social factors. So in that I'll write down. But I can also say one more point of view. Finally, since The truck drivers have accepted the job role knowingly there is no insurance is a clear indicator that they have satisfied the ethical needs as well. Since the employment contract is very transparent, this cannot be considered an ethical issue as well. Full stop. Students, can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are fine with this, students? Because if you see, the answer was very different. The answer was very different. And I'm being very transparent to the students. This is a very balanced answer compared with the management case study answer. Any questions you like to ask, you can ask me, students. So I'm going to go for the next one. I'm going to go for the challenges on political, legal, and social factors of providing insurance. So, okay, got the understanding very well. As we can use examples of real world businesses and countries as long as it's irrelevant. Yeah, it's relevant. Correct. I told you that. So, students, can we go for yes, Priscilla?
So what's the difference between us having insurance on our assets and having insurance on the drivers? Because I just want to understand the difference.
No, insurance on drivers is for their health and safety, injury, all those things. Like you
Right,
have your
okay.
medical insurance like that. Now
Okay,
assets are not like that, right? Assets are, it can get damaged. Those things are only assets.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
okay. So students, coming to the challenges on political, legal, and social factors of providing insurance. Understand it very well. Challenges on political, legal, social factors on providing insurance. Now, students, political and legal. Now, if you generally say the political environment and the legal environment, if you observe, there are no issues at all. The reason is, students, you are effectively following the rules and the regulations, whatever that has been inculcated in the market. Now, the social factor is a little bit different. So I will guide you as well on how to think in that social aspect also. So I'll write it down so that it will be very clear for you. The insurance policy in Roundland is not mandatory for the truck drivers. It's not mandatory for the truck drivers. Understand it very clearly. The insurance policy in Roundland is not mandatory for the truck drivers. Therefore, in general point of view, the company is not obliged to have any responsibility other than the legal compliances. I am repeating that same thing once again. However, the following factors can be considered as well. First one, I'll write down here. Politically, there will be no much impact since the water banks are not affected by this issue. Students, there is something called water banks. Water banks means the total number of people eligible to vote in a particular segment. Now, truck driver students, they are not representing a major part of the labor segment. So there is no much impact since the voter base is not affected by this issue. Therefore, the political threat may be minimal. The political threat may be what, students? Minimal. And there are less chances of any political issues that is arising, considering the roundland economy and the, if I'm not mistaken, logistic industry. Students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you understood that different way of thinking, water bank? Now, students, if you see the textbook in strategic case studies, whatever that is there, it is good for knowledge. But when it comes to application, you should think very differently. Can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are clear with this point of view of the water bank, students? Can I get a confirmation, students? Because that is a different way of thinking. Understand it very well. So political threat will be less. Legal issues. As we have already explained, will not be a major factor. Since the companies in the industry is following the rules and the regulations of paying the minimum wage on time. Therefore, the industry has satisfied the legal rules and regulations. Therefore, the chances are less at the moment. But in case, in the long term, there can be rules where an insurance to the drivers are compulsory. Insurance to the drivers are what, students? Compulsory. Students, can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are clear with that point of view on the insurance to the drivers can be compulsory in the long run, not now. That is how you have to think, students. You have to think strategically. Social is a very, very important point of view. Will this be a social issue or not a social issue? What do you think, Priscilla? Do you think will this be a social issue or this will not be a social issue? What is your point of view? Political, no. Mr. Keetiswaran, politically, no. Legally also, no. Correct, no, Mr. Keetiswaran. But socially, will this be an issue? Socially,
not providing insurance will not be an issue.
Excellent.
But in case if the accidents are more and all, then
there can be an issue. 100% there can be an issue. But Mr. Keetiswaran, coming to the point of view of thinking, now if you observe Mr. Keetiswaran, if you observe the shirt what we are wearing, okay, Are we concerned about the lifestyle of the government employee? Practically, no, mistake.
No,
It is
no.
no. That is the point of view. Now, students, if you observe in social factors, the back end workers generally people don't consider. That is the truth. And even in the past paper answers, they have referred that explicitly, very clearly. They have mentioned, because students, if you are buying an iPhone, you are not bothered about the employee exploitation in China. That is very clear, because you effectively want your product to have a stable quality. But social issue will come to light not based on the back end, front end issues. If there are front end issues, then it will end up in social issues factor. An example of a front end issue can be like open discrimination of Asian employees, open discrimination of African employees. Those are front discrimination. But if you observe in the first world countries, especially in the UK or the other countries, they are very much educated. So they will never take a risk of going for front end issues. They will always do all the bad works back end. So can I get a confirmation from Priscilla? Is that clear, Priscilla? Because you will never see anything in the front. Everything will be done in the hidden. Correct, no, Priscilla, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
So students get that very, very clearly. This is one factor that we have to consider. So students, I'm going to move forward with the explanation more in detail and more with clarity as well. The society generally does not interfere in the back-end operations. Since they are concerned of consuming rather than only having a basic understanding, of, if I'm not mistaken, rather than having a basic understanding of what is happening behind. Therefore, in this case, there will be less social issues considering the following factor. Now, students, I will continue this in more detail. However, one more factor to be considered is that the application of road safety and increase in injury and also poor time management causing traffics. These factors may influence the society in Roundland, effectively creating a social need for the insurance of the truck drivers, irrespective of their origin of their origin. Full stop. So students, I believe this has given you a better understanding, a better clarity at the moment. So I'll just write down here a small conclusion. Therefore, as a conclusion, insurance can add value to the business since the loyalty of the staff can increase. But there are some cost factors to be considered as well. If Daistruk wants to enhance the CSR reputation, they can start having insurance policy. But it is not mandatory. It is not mandatory. Full stop. Students, are you clear with this point of view, students? Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are clear with this understanding of this mock one explanation, students? Because practically it is very, very, very important for you to get the idea properly. Can I get a confirmation from you all in this, students? Thank you. Thank you, students. Now, students, I have to give you a very, very serious note so that it will be very clear for you all. That is, every day I will remind the students, don't maintain my notes with my mocks only. So I'll write down here, maintain a summary book. Maintain a summary book. Maintain a summary book. Okay, maintain a summary book. So just a small book you can maintain, or you can keep it as a soft copy if you prefer. So I'm going to write down here topic. One is I'll write down here topic, and then students topic, reasoning, conclusion. Okay, topic, reasoning, conclusion. So one topic was CIMA, Code of Ethics. Correct? That is one topic. Then students, if I'm not mistaken, political, legal, social issues. Political, legal, and social issues. And then students, if I'm not mistaken, in simple language, legal versus ethical. These were the area that we did. Now, CIMA Code of Ethics, reasoning, business ethics. This was our reasoning in this case. Business ethics, political, legal factors, practical to the situation. Practical to the situation for Roundland, and truck drivers. And legal versus ethical, very much, I can say, vague points, very much vague point. You don't have a correct answer. Vague point. Conclusion, business ethics needs to be relevant to the business of logistics. Political legal factors can differ, but in the case of truck drivers, it is less. Legal versus ethical, generally a balanced point of view. Now, students, just remember the golden rule. Now, if you speak to many students, I am very serious, you can't apply the method of memorizing and learning. Now, if you have done a mock today, just make a conclusion of the learning outcome only. Now, one of the biggest mistake why students fail the examination is they memorize all the mocks, and in the exam, when they get a question similar to this, they write down the same marks and they fail the examination. That is a risk. Don't do that. I'm just suggesting you take a summary book, identify what you learn from this, but don't memorize it. And in the exam day, you need to attempt it like for the first time you are attempting a case study, not the mocks, everything. So I'll write down here in exams, think strategically, students, strategically of solving an issue. Don't think technically, strategically of solving an issue. Be confident with whatever you are doing. And the main reason we are doing mocks is to give you the skill set only. The intellectual is how you think, that I can't do anything, that depends on personal effort of different people. But strategic thinking is very, very important. And I'll just write down a point here. Never memorize the mocks. Not only my mocks, any mock students, never memorize it. Some may say this one memorize and go. Don't do that. It will be a bigger blunder on your final examination. Learn it very well. Now I'll ask a question from Mr. Kitiswaran. Mr. Kitiswaran, now in our industry, we have a railway also. A rail transport is also there. Correct, Mr. Kitiswaran? Rail transport.
Yeah.
Now, for the rail transport, do you need to have insurance or no need to have insurance? Rail transport.
Not at all.
Rail transport, not at all, you are saying?
For the drivers, not at all.
Not at all, you are saying. Okay. Priscilla, what do you think? In the railway transportation, do you need to have insurance or no need to have insurance? Railway. Hello.
Mr. Nufail, now when it comes to accidents, of course, the probability is less compared to trucks when it comes to railway. But only thing, then you have to think of the passenger insurance.
No, we are cargo. We are cargo.
Sorry.
Not passengers. So in the point of railway, the application changes. Because if you see railway drivers is completely different from truck drivers. They can't operate a train with the skill set of a truck driver. Correct, no, Mr. Kitiswaran, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Do you think migrant workers can go and take care of the railway? I don't think, Mr. Kitiswaran. It's very tough. And in that case, it's always better to have an insurance to the railway drivers, because it's very, very essential compared with the truck drivers, because truck drivers are like part-time workers, independent workers like that. But for the cargo rail, it's a very complicated task. Is that clear, Mr. Kitiswaran?
Yeah.
So that application changes, students. So just remember one thing: maintain a summary book, okay, or short a paper like this. Never ever memorize the mocks. And if you are doing anything by your own, just have a statement called "What did I understand?" When I read a storybook, I write "What did I understand?" as a separate book, and I write it down. So my clarity, my retention on reading books, reading articles are very, very longer. And sometimes it will be for a lifetime, because I always ask my question, what did I understand? So students, now I'll come to the one-to-one question discussion. Any doubts you have, you can ask me. If you're fine with this, you can please put Y in the chat box. So I'll start from Ms. Anitra. Any questions for the day?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ifzal, any questions for the day?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tanson, any questions for the day?
Hello, Nufail, sir. I had one question. As we've discussed here, as long as insurance is not mandatory, or necessary complaints to be done legally, we need not have insurance. But my only question is, should we also mention the fact that if and all some injuries happen, what will be our actions? Is it like compensate the family or something, or instead of taking insurance for everyone, like, you know, what I'm saying is, shall our actions be mentioned here, like as a
In that case, I think no, for this question, no need to mention. But in case if this is a risk question, you have to mention also. If because in this question they were not specifying the risk area. You understand what I'm saying, Ransom? Because your point of view is specifically focusing on the risk mitigation. And in this case, it was focusing on the ethics factor. Are you clear with that answer? And in those countries, especially, they are not like too emotional to help people. It's very much, I can say, formal culture. Are you clear with that answer? But it's a good point of view, how we can help. But based on the past experience, we can say they would have not helped anything because they would have sometimes given that responsibility to the truck driver, because you drive like this only you happen. Because one of my friend in Sweden, he told me the truck driving industry is a very much unregulated industry in the Western countries. A lot of death take place, and practically in those countries, although deaths are taking place, the application is very less. Munjala, I think, is that true, Munjala? Does road accidents takes place much in the first 12 countries?
Yes, very much so, because like you said, there's insurance, so there's a possibility for people to be relaxed and more accidents will happen.
And they are not concerned about these truck drivers, right, Munjala? They are not well-educated people also, right? They are just focusing on the
yes.
physical appearance and
Yes,
the
very
body.
much. As long as they can get a license and they can get on the road and the job can be done.
Thank you. Thank you. That is what I am telling. As long as the job can be done, that is the answer, actually. I'll come to the next person, Miss Aqualine. Any questions for the day?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ashish, any questions for the day? Thank you. Miss Cleopatra, any questions for the day?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Koza, any questions for the day?
Yes, I don't know. Like in South Africa, we have what is called UIF, that is taken for employees. So maybe if we say that, not really, because now, as you have said, from the strategic perspective, it's more cost. Now, what if we say we take an insurance and then it becomes part of the deductions in their salary? I don't know.
That is a good question. That's a very good answer, frankly. That I can accept your answer, Mr. Kosa. That's a correct answer. We can give them an insurance and we can deduct it from the salary. Thank you. Can
Yes,
I write that
because in
answer?
sort of, thank you.
Thank you. I can say that's a good answer. So that's what students I'm telling. Don't follow my way of thinking. Write in your own way. And frankly, there is no barriers. I'm telling very openly. You can write. You can say, provide insurance. It happens also, students. Provide insurance and deduct from the package. Deduct from the package. That's a good point. Thank you. It's a very good. Is any other things, Mr. Koza? Okay.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Miss Munjala, any questions?
Yeah, just two questions. I would probably refer to the risk register. I'm not sure if that's right or wrong, but the fact in the risk register is mentioned Daistruk pay a competitive rate, and that they give for the health and safety part, they give ongoing training. So I guess that could mitigate this.
Practically speaking, if you don't mind, I think here, right? The board pays close attention to the rate, staff turnover, response to any threats. Daistruk ensures staff space competitive. That's correct. That's correct. Because they are only concerned, like you are saying, as long as the job is done, as long as a competitive rate is paid. Correct, Ms. Munjala.
Yes.
So it is getting offsetting. It's getting offsetting. Thank you.
Yeah, and then sorry, just the other thing, probably if it's okay to mention, one of the Roundland Daily about the motorway chaos. So I could say maybe the media is paying close attention to the strict rules of carrying these oversized loads, that could be maybe potential risk factor to open up the need for insurance. If the media is
Very
aware.
good, very good. But that's a very good point. I can argue that point. You can write that point. I can just write down here. Media can influence these factors. But I want to be giving you the argument point also. Now, if you see Munjala, for media, they are also a business at the end of the day. Correct? No, Miss Munjala, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Media is also a business. And the practical factor is how long media can cover up this. Because if you generally observe in 2022, most of the issues will maximum last for 10 days. Have you observed that, Munjala, in reality?
Yes, correct.
After 10 days, it will not last. So I'll write down here, media can influence. But how long they can follow up? How long they can follow up? How long they can follow up? That is one factor. That is correct. That's a good point. Any other things, Miss Munjala?
No, thank you, sir.
Welcome. Mr. Niros, any questions for the day? Miss Priscilla, any questions for the day? Mr. Ranganathan, any questions for the day?
Yes, sir. So it's not based on the employee insurance, but based on the vehicle insurance, sir. Not the vehicle insurance, but the goods which are carrying the insurance for that. Like if you're carrying the perishable goods and on the way, if you're having any accident or like roadblocks, or what if the driver gets sick or something like that, and we are unable to deliver the items on time, and there's a chance that the goods may get spoiled or like damaged. Or there can be also a case where this truck's refrigerator system gets broken down on the way, which the driver not gets to know about it. So there can be chances of spoilage of goods. So do we all need to take the insurance for these type of products, since it's not mentioned in the pre-scene? So anyway.
Technically, yes, we have to take. You're correct actually. But for this question, it is not relevant. But in the business case, you're correct, Ranganathan. Because they have not mentioned anything related to the insurance policies on the consignment stocks they are holding. Because there are high chances, especially like milk can get contaminated. Correct, no, Ranganathan, if I'm not mistaken, vegetable oil. Now, vegetable oil, milk oil can get contaminated, food poison can happen. Not because of the manufacturer, because of the transporter. That is a correct answer. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Ketiswaran, any questions?
No, Mr. Nufail.
Thank you. I think I spoke to everyone in the class for today. So thank you very much, students. I will meet you up on the Wednesday class. And slowly let's improve the writing skills, and I'll complete the theory sections as well once your writing skills are strong. Take care, students.